Hello there, friends. Thanks for clicking on this video. And as the title is suggesting, once again I find myself going to plan 13B and unintended consequences. I hope this video finds everybody doing well, enjoying life. Coffee's still a little hot, so for me, life is good. About 3 weeks ago or so, I did a video talking about my Harbor Freight rock tumbler and how successful it's been for me for the past several years, with the exception of this rim in here letting go. And I talked about using some contact cement, putting it back in place, and that worked for about 2 tumbling sessions as I drop everything around here. And I appreciate everybody's suggestion about putting the nut on top of here and pulling it off, and that's what I've done on occasion, not every single time. But after the past couple tumbling sessions, more of this rubber rim is letting go. So I had to think about things and come up with Plan 13B, because eventually I'm not going to be able to use this in producing any of my black powder. So what did I do to resolve this problem? Okay, well, first of all, I've got plenty of 4-inch plastic PVC tubing here. I didn't have any bottoms, but when you think about the size of this bottom, it's not going to fit very easily and work in this particular tumbler. Okay, so I went to the hardware store. Let me get this out of the way here. So I went to the hardware store and I found some 4-inch caps. And I got them home, and I had a piece of 4-inch PVC, and lo and behold, it doesn't slip on the inside. It's like, wait, what? My surprise. So I had to think about things a little bit differently. Now, what I like about these particular caps is that they do fit inside the tumbler with a lot of room on each side for it to rotate, as opposed to the regular cap that slips over the top. Okay, so the PVC is 4 inches OD, and this is 4 inches OD, so it's not going to slip inside. So since I had enough PVC, I decided to take one of these, and I bought 4 of them because it was my intended purpose to make 2 of these, but I only ended up with 1. So what I did is I took my heat gun and I heated this up, and I thought that I could heat it up enough so that I could slip it over the outside diameter of the 4-inch PVC. That didn't work. That didn't work. So my next plan was to take some 4-inch PVC and cut it, and then make the 4-inch PVC smaller so that it would fit on. Now this was just a trial piece. I'll show you the true piece here in just a moment. So I could see by cutting it that I could make this smaller. Now what I did is, in order to take the spring out of it so that I could glue everything together, I took my heat gun and put a little bit of heat back on the back side of it, and once I got the spring out of it, I just held it at that shape until it cooled down enough that I lost most of the spring out of this. Okay, so once I got that done, I was able to slide the cap, or slide the PVC on the inside of the pipe, the cap, and you can see the joint right there. So once I got that slipped over inside the cap, I glued it in place. Now, if you watch a lot of these guys making their homemade gunpowder, a lot of them will suggest, and I totally concur, that put some sort of step on the inside so that it causes the ball to actually flip and tumble. Now, there is a benefit to that, okay, and I'll get to that also momentarily. But what I did with mine, since I knew I had a seam here and I didn't want, any gunpowder, falling through the seam. Now, once I got it glued in here at the bottom, I took some 5-minute epoxy and I filled the seam and let that set and sanded it flush. But I took some PVC, the length, the depth of the tube, and I glued that on the seam as added protection. Since you're gonna put these little steps in there anyhow, you might as well just block that seam from the inside. And I only put 3 just simply because I didn't feel like putting 4. I just put 3. Okay, so once I got this made, and also on the rim, what I did is I kind of beveled, not to the very, very, very edge, but just outside of the edge. I just kind of beveled it down just to help to align the cap a little bit easier. Now, I will tell you, this is a very strong pressure fit cap, okay? In fact, it's so tight and pressure fit that I have to use a block of wood and a hammer to hit it right here and loosen it up, okay? And as you can see, these 2 lids are not the same length, so I actually had to cut some off of this, okay? Just because it's a little more convenient for me. You can, you can make them both the same size and have, that much gap in between the 2. That's entirely up to you. But I chose to do this knowing that what my gap was and how tight of a pressure fit this lid was. I couldn't see myself getting anything in there to knock the lid loose. So that's why I did it this way, so I got some room to knock it loose, okay? So, it's a very tight pressure fit. And I'm using the same amount of lead media that I used in this container here. That didn't change. And I can still do a ½ pound of powder at a time. And let me just state something here. In the previous video, I had mentioned that my formula for making black powder is 75, 15, 11. That is a correct statement because I put 11 grams of sulfur in my mix. And you can go back on this channel and you'll hear me refer to that multiple times. For whatever reason, that mix works very well for me. I'm not concerned about getting, 10,000 feet per second out of my black powder, because whether you get, 4,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 1,000 feet per second, you're just as dead. I mean, so those things, tomato to me. But yes, that is correct. It's 75, 15, 11. And I started doing that when I quit using the dextrin, because I discovered that the dextrin was leaving my touch hole a little too fouled for my liking in my flintlock. So that's why I did that. I substituted the dextrin with an extra gram of sulfur, which, sulfur consumes anyway. So to me, that's not been a problem. So once I got all of that done, I decided, well, I got it made, I put it inside the rock tumbler, and I couldn't get it to spin, okay? So I had to resolve that issue. So what I did is, since I've got a whole bunch of horseshoe rasps, I heated up the tip, the end of the horseshoe rasp, and I took it and I just walked it and let the heat melt into the plastic and create a texture. Something for the rollers to grab. Okay? So I did that. And it still didn't work quite as well as I had thought. So, what I decided to do at that time is take some electrical tape and wrap some electrical tape on those little plastic inserts that are on the steel rollers, which are designed to help grip and tumble this container itself. And I built up the drive, the drive rod first that comes directly off the motor and pulley. I built that up, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch, and I could see it was just beginning to grab, so I built it up even taller, and it grabbed a little bit more at that point. For me right now, it's kind of hard guessing, but you're looking at least close to about 1/4 inch thick of electrical tape buildup, okay, at least. And I kind of played with it a little bit. I had a little bit too much, took off some electrical tape until I got to the point to where it worked very sufficiently. And once I could get it to tumble, what was happening is, because I didn't have any electrical tape on the opposite side, because of the weight and the tumbling action, it kind of threw this off to the side. So it wasn't spinning true spin, it was kind of like throwing it. And I suspect that the weight of the media inside was causing some of that. So I built up the other side. As you can see, once again, it's a little bit taller than the drive side, than that drive axle. And now it works extremely well. I've made one batch of gunpowder with it already, and I've been very, very surprised at something, and this is the unintended consequence. As I've mentioned before, when I've made gunpowder with this tumbling tub, it took me about 30 hours to get all of that gunpowder to cake and become a solid mass on the bottom to where all the media is sitting on top. Now, from time to time, I was able to achieve that at like 28 hours, so I'd go in, stir it up, and let it go for the additional couple of hours just to make sure that everything gets very well mixed. So, what I did with this, at about 14 hours, I stopped the tumbler, popped the lid off, and all the media was on top of the caked gunpowder. That was at 14 hours. This tumbler had already caked all that gunpowder. So what I did is I stirred it up like I did with this, and I let it run for another hour and a half. And in that hour and a half, it was caked once again. So it appears to me that I've been able to reduce my tumbling time by approximately half the amount. Now, with these little steps in there to help throw the ball around, I also should let you know that when I did all of this, and bearing in mind that I read somewhere that as this stands from Harbor Freight, this is only a 40 RPM tumbler, okay? So when I did all of that, put the electrical tape in there and went to this, I actually timed it, and I was able to time it because you can see the seam and you can count the seam as it comes around. I've actually doubled my rotation. Now I'm getting 80 RPM. So I'm of the mind that the additional RPM along with the true tumbling action of these little legs here, these little steps, that I've been able to reduce my tumbling time in half. I've got a little bit more of what was the 4F. I'm going to throw that back in here because I kind of want to see, you know, how much time it's going to take to get this to cake back on the bottom of this container. So anyhow, if you find yourself in the position that I was in, having to eventually replace this and not wanting to spend, I know I went on eBay and somebody had one of these brand new for like 20 bucks plus shipping. Well, I only got $6 in this. So for me, it was just a no-brainer. But it did give me a chance to, you know, kind of work this process through. Obviously I didn't record any of it because I wasn't sure how it was all going to work out. But once again, that's probably, well, I can tell you what that gap is. This gap is 11/16. Okay, and once I got it to this point on the piece that I was going to use for the drum, I took a file and I actually filed and beveled the insides toward the inside so that when I put the two pieces together, you can almost see, because this was my practice piece, you could almost see that that seam comes together pretty damn good. So anyhow, guys, if you find yourself having to do this, remember Plan 13B. It always seems to be my go-to plan when stuff like this happens. So anyhow, thanks for watching, and everybody have a wonderful week. And depending on when this video gets uploaded, watch out for the solar eclipse coming in April 2024. Bye.